We're right here. I've got to plug in my audio, right? So a decent.
Hello, Chris.
Hey there. Okay. Good evening. Tonight we're going to do an analysis of the movie Tangerine, independent film released in 2015. And I will share my screen with Dramatica on it. So we may take a peek at it and start filling in. Now, one of the things I did do this time is I actually dropped in the information from IMDb because I thought they had a pretty concise description of the overall story. A hooker tears through Tinseltown on Christmas Eve searching for the pimp who broke her heart. That's like, okay, that's a nice, really concise, and and it's such a strange film. It's probably best just to go with the sort of the commercial blurb. So does everybody okay with that as a sort of the overall story?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so let us move on to our main character. Who's the main character? This is the list of the principal characters in the movie. Sin-Dee is the one, I think, who is the hooker tearing around looking for her pimp. I think Alexandra is her best friend. Razmik is the cab driver. Dina is the girl with whom Chester cheated on Sin-Dee. And then Chester is the boyfriend or the pimp. I believe Ashken is Razmik's wife and Yeva is Ashken's mother, so Razmik's mother-in-law. I think
Yeva's the wife.
Huh?
I think Yeva's the wife.
Okay, so
I think it's reversed. But
yeah, all right, that's fine.
Anyone know who Desiree was? Because I heard the name a lot, and then I never figured out who that was.
They didn't know what the name was that started with D.
Right,
So
that was
always guessing.
That was
I thought they landed on Desiree, but so Dinah was okay.
Yeah, Dina. I think it is. Is it Dina or Dinah? Dinah. Anyway, yeah, they were trying to figure out the D name, and Desiree was one of those names. So that was the name the label they gave her until they actually got her real name, Dinah or Dina.
Got
it. So who would be our main character? Anybody have suggestions? Well, let me do one.
I'm pretty sure Sin-Dee is our main character.
Okay, and Sin-Dee is the one who we're running around following after trying to get to the pimp, right? Okay, so you have Sin-Dee. Now, she's definitely the protagonist. There's no question about that. She's the one who, geez. Got something under my head.
How do you tell if she's male or female character?
Oh, well, I will designate it.
That's how it depends on how your logic works. It's not the actual gender of the character, it's the logic behind the character.
No, that's a separate question. This is
that's a separate question.
Yeah, this is actually the gender of the character, not the mental sex, not the mental gender. Yeah.
You're gonna have to update this in the next iteration. Include a lot more options.
Yeah, I'll just put other. No. Just kidding. Yes. All right. Well, different story. Anybody else have any thoughts? Oh, I think you're muted.
There's certainly times Alexandra felt like.
Yeah, who's
the main character?
Yeah, remember the main character follows is the personal through line, so we're seeing things personally from her perspective as opposed to sort of watching what the protagonist is doing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. Sorry. Yeah, my inclination was that Alexandra is the main character.
Okay.
And that Sin-Dee was the protagonist. And it would be hard to justify exactly why I think that, other than to say that I feel like most of my reason for thinking that came down to like framing and the way the shots were done, I feel like, well, partly we got a lot of scenes with Alexandra, but I feel like, I think the thing that mostly pushed me over the edge was the song. Like we got like these really long extended close-ups of her face while she was singing. And for me, that kind of, it was shots like that. Whereas when we were, it felt more like we were looking at Sin-Dee from a bit of a distance.
Okay.
And that, I don't know, for me, that sort of pushed me in the direction where it felt like Alexandra was more of the main character.
Could this be, Chris, a situation of sort of main character handing off from time to time? Because I don't know if there's enough distinction for me with Razmik, but we do spend a lot of time with him.
Well, remember, we're going to have, supposedly, we're going to have two subjective characters. So potentially, Razmik might either be a handoff main character or an influence character. I don't know, but I'm just saying there are definitely going to be at least two subjective characters. So
Could there be a handoff to the cab driver, whoever the cab driver is at the time?
yeah, that was Razmik.
Because
That's what
because of the scene with the mother-in-law and the other cab driver, I
Right.
thought that slipped right in to the main character for a moment.
Okay, well, I'll throw him in there, but I think, okay,
As a trade-off, the cab driver, the
Right.
cab.
So originally,
handoff, no trade-off. Yes.
so originally I thought that because of the
Yeah,
way,
handoff.
like she was saying before, the framing, how the movie was flipping back and forth between Razmik and Sin-Dee, I thought that was going to be our main character, influence character. Like I thought that was where it was going to go. But
Yeah.
then at the very end, it felt more like Alexandra was actually our influence character towards Sin-Dee. But I still felt like Sin-Dee was our main character. I don't think there was any point that I could really see anyone else as the main character. But she's the protagonist, so that's probably why it felt so much like
Well,
she was the main character.
Yeah, she's definitely a protagonist. There's no question of that. She is that hooker that's tearing through Tinseltown trying to.
Right.
See, I think the reason why I felt like Alexandra was actually the main character was because we got all of those scenes that were about her wanting to sing and doing the performance. And technically that had nothing to do with the overall story.
Right.
Whereas it felt like pretty much every time we got a scene with Sin-Dee, it was directly linked to that overall story of protagonist role. Like I can't think of really any scene where we get by herself that isn't directly related to that overall story. Whereas again, I can think of several scenes with specifically Alexandra where it felt like we got sort of like a continuous arc of her doing that thing, which again, ostensibly had nothing to do with the main goal that we were pursuing.
Right.
So I don't know what else to call it other than that felt like the main character through line to me.
I mean, even when they split up, after Alexandra gets fed up with Sin-Dee, and so they have the sort of the parallel scenes of Sin-Dee drops and going off after her pimp, Alexandra kind of going in a different way and handing out her flyers to her friends. So I mean, even that was very clearly sort of two completely different sort of contexts. One is the hooker, the other one is this woman who wants to be a singer. And so I think you're right about that, Audrey. I think that's that is more personal than the way we see Sin-Dee. Not that we don't sympathize with Sin-Dee or understand her plight or see her that way, but I just don't think there's enough. I mean, I couldn't say what Sin-Dee is dealing with personally, except being sort of pissed off that her boyfriend cheated on her, but he cheats on her with everybody. So it's not a uniquely.
So I don't want to get too deep here, but in the framework of the overall story, Razmik doesn't really fit in to that world, except
Well, I
if we
mean,
look at him as maybe a co-protagonist. He's definitely pursuing his own white whale, as it were, in finding Sin-Dee.
Well, he's well, right. He is, Sin-Dee's this object of desire, and he is, he's a customer, and we are seeing a lot of it. We do get a glimpse inside his life, so he's definitely a subjective character. But
Yeah.
he's really looking for Sin-Dee, and he's really looking for the kind of hooker that Sin-Dee is, not a female hooker, so it's very,
Oh, yeah.
so he's definitely hooked in the overall story through that. There's no question of it. And that big blow up scene in the laundromat, it was a laundromat, right? No, in the donut shop. That's where all those threads sort of come together and, sort of explode. So I would pull out Sin-Dee out of him as a main character. I think she's just a very, very, very strong protagonist, and I think that's why we spend so much time with her. But we're watching her doing essentially, she's on a tear regarding her job and her, it's her pimp who also happens to be her boyfriend, right? And they never did say why Sin-Dee was even in jail. You can
Yeah, they did.
No, they,
And when
they
he
did.
asked her to marry him,
He took,
he
yeah.
had pot and
he
drugs and
the
stuff
fall,
on him.
That's right.
So he gave them
Yeah,
to
she takes
her
the ball for.
because, it's easier for her to go to jail for a month and come back out than if
That's
he
right.
goes to jail. That's their whole business. He has to be out there working.
That's right. So it was even a business, even that thing, that was basically business. It was just
Right. It was business. She went to jail so that he didn't have to go to jail.
right.
She took it for him.
Now, what about Rosnick? Okay, so any thoughts on whether or not Rosnick is the main character or the influence character, or I don't know. I'm not asking. I'm just or put this way, who would be the influence character in this? Rather than deciding there, but who would be the influence character for Alexandra?
I feel it's the relationship between her and and between the two hookers. I mean, it ends with them in the laundromat, like making amends, and you see that they really love each other, and let bygones be bygones. So to me, that's definitely the impact character, to me anyway.
All right, so you see Sin-Dee over here and as an influence character.
Yeah, I keep forgetting the names, but
That's
yeah.
all right. No, that's fine. You can call it impact character.
But yeah, like it starts with them talking in their relationship. It ends with them talking in their relationship. So it's felt very much that the movie was about their relationship more than any of the other relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second or third that or whatever one. I feel like I definitely felt like Sin-Dee was the influence character. Rosnick, I feel like he was just, I mean, we did get a little bit into his personal life, but I almost felt like it was like, it felt like like they had the situation with Alexandra, Sin-Dee, Chester, and Dinah, and they were like, that's not quite enough. We need more character. Like that wasn't like quite a full
You need the
set.
opposite argument. Because the argument at the end, you need the opposite argument. Because they have that one argument that they're having, but you need the other viewpoint. So you kind of needed another story to,
right?
Like, because their argument is she cheating on him or is she not cheating on him? Does this count as cheating? And that whole fight at that donut shop was all about that grand argument on, are they cheating? Is this cheating? Is this not cheating? So they needed that point of view of this dude would be also cheating, actually.
So thematically, in order to make the thematic argument, they use those characters as counterpoints to what's in to round out the rest of the argument.
Counterpoint, I think that the taxi Ramzik, just from the moment you meet him, it's like, oh, this is a guy that's from outside this world that we have been seeing for the past 20 minutes or whatever, the first act or whatever it was. And just to see his viewpoint, and you think he's like this innocent guy, and then you realize, oh, he's totally involved in this world too. So I thought that was really great writing, that he kind of reflected a different world, that to the point where you see that his family is like, what are you doing in this crazy world? You have a family, you have a little girl. So anyway.
Oh, no, that's what his mother-in-law is saying. You notice his wife that wasn't her argument. Her argument was like, look, this is the way he sort of, this is his outlet. It's, just let him have his thing. It keeps peace in our, it keeps peace in our family, and you're coming in here and you're messing things up, Mom. That was kind of her position, for whatever reason. They don't really explain. She never really explains why she feels that way, but she definitely makes that a point to her mother.
Yeah.
And her mother, the mother-in-law is, Rosnick's mother-in-law is definitely a fly in the ointment.
Do you think her child was kind of a subtle explanation why she liked taking a break from intimate relationships with him? She had enough to handle.
Maybe, but I think what it really does is it shows it shows who the John was, like, as an instance of who the Johns are and why that, what they're looking for. And it's not that it's that they can be just seemingly regular guys, married men, but their interests are not necessarily kosher, typical. Traditional, right? But they're but who live in who exist in a very traditional world, especially if you look at, I'm not sure if he's Armenian or if he's Middle Eastern. I thought it was Armenian.
I think so.
Yeah, they were speaking. I think they even said something about speak Armenian, or
right. Because I recognized Armenian, and it's like, okay, that's I think that. But I mean, it's very, very traditional.
Yeah,
patriarchal.
I think even one of the hookers said, stop speaking that Russian, or said something about, like, completely misconstrued what language they were speaking.
Yeah.
Something about, you guys are, I don't understand Russian, or whatever she said.
I do, well, though I do think there was something interesting going on with the Razmik character, or a couple of things. But I think that the most interesting thing about him was the fact that we saw that he actually has kind of a friendship with Alexandra. Do you know what I mean? Like they've clearly, I mean, obviously he's, one of her clients, but they actually are friendly with each other. They sort of talk a little bit. And as opposed to the other guy that we see Alexandra with, the other client who's like, a total jerk. And so I don't know, now the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, no, there is definitely, there's an exploration of his complexity, because on the one hand, you're sort of like, oh, he's a nice guy. Like he's decent. And then you're like, well, he is also cheating on his wife. And it's like, so there is actually, it feels like there's more, we're asked to engage more with that than, yeah. I mean, I don't know what that means, but I have observed it. So that's something.
Right. Jim, did you have any thoughts?
Nope.
Okay. Well, you were quiet, so I wasn't sure if you were just biting your tongue or just, okay. So
no, all sounds good to me.
Yeah. I mean, so the question is, I mean, we do get to see, Razmik more on the personal side. I'm just wondering if he's more in the influence character side of the equation that allows us, when we're not dealing with Sin-Dee, to sort of have him counterpoint Alexandra, because we really don't, except in the beginning and the end, Sin-Dee, we don't, and then the middle where Sin-Dee comes in to support Alexandra. That's the other moment when Sin-Dee's like steps out of her world and and into Alexandra's. So it might be that that Sin-Dee and Razmik are handoff influence characters as opposed to main characters. You know, because that way we would still be able to have that subjective view with Razmik. I don't know. I mean, it's a non-traditional storytelling or story structure, so I'm not sure. I don't imagine it's going to fit squarely into Dramatica, but I think we can see an awful lot about it. So I'll let me just, everybody comfortable if I just move him over here? I don't want to get rid of him out of the subjective argument, but I just think we do see a bit of him, but I'm not sure how much we really, I'm not sure.
But yeah, like Audrey was saying before, when she's talking about just the way they kind of shot scenes, I was like, the way that we went back and forth from this story, that story, his story, their story, it felt very influenced character for him. The only thing that had me pull him out of either of those spots was just because the relationship through line felt so much like it was a relationship between the girls, because that was that was what threw me. Otherwise, I would have been like, the girls are our main character and he is our influence character. That's how it felt through most of this film. But I didn't feel like his relationship with them was our story. It felt like their relationship with each other was the story. Yeah. So that's what made it confusing.
Which just leads us over to the relationship. What is their relationship?
Best friends.
Okay.
I mean, that's sort of the vibe that I got with the two of them.
You know, it's a relationship through line, so it has trouble, but the idea is that they're best friends that are under stress. Their friendship is under stress.
Right, yeah.
Not the least of which because of Sin-Dee's behavior and Alexandra sleeping with Chester. So I think those two things, you know, they play a little bit in it. Okay, so let's move into the story engine. Let's start answering them, with some questions that might be easy or might not be. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's start with the main character. We have Alexandra as the main character. Let's just start with approach. Is Alexandra a doer or a beer, and how? So I thought this was going to be a relative.
Well, see, my inclination was that she's a beer. Honestly, mostly because Sin-Dee seems so clearly to be a doer.
Right.
And I was like, she's the influence. So I almost by default.
Okay, so give some examples. How would you see?
Well, I mean, so why is she
a beer?
Well, I feel like mostly what she does is she tries to influence with her personality. Like I thought of like the beginning of the scene where she's basically Sin-Dee's off running, like the moment she finds out this stuff. And then Alexandra's sort of trailing alongside her going like, you have to stop. You can't be doing this. Da, 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 da. But like, she's sort of trying, she's not like physically trying to stop her, but she's just trying to win her over kind of
through persuasion.
Yeah. Right, persuade her to not be doing what she's going to do.
I mean, even when she's handing out her flyers, which you'd say, oh, she's a doer, she's handing out flyers. Yeah, but she's really not doing anything to make sure that they actually physically show up. She's not, roping people off the street and shoving them in and say, watch my performance. She's just sort of, I mean, it's sort of active passive, but it definitely, she seems to be using her force of being to try to persuade them to come as opposed to doing something specific. Everybody okay with beer? I mean, yes, Sin-Dee is clearly a doer.
Yeah.
All right, so main character resolve, change or steadfast. So either Alexandra is a change character, which would make Sin-Dee a steadfast character, or Alexandra is a steadfast character, which makes Sin-Dee a change character. In this particular instance, and of course, Razmik is going to be ostensibly the same as whatever Sin-Dee is. So anybody have a thought as to whether Alexandra is a changed character or a steadfast character? And reasons. And if you don't, if we can't figure this one out, then we'll leave it alone and we'll come back to it a different way.
Well, I'll just talk through. So I don't have a selection yet. I have inclination, but at the beginning of the movie, Alexandra is like, I'm not here for the drama. You start drama, I'm out of here. But that's not really what she does. She kind of goes along for the drama the whole time. And at the end of the movie, she embraces it. She's there for her. She's 100%, she's got urine thrown in her face and she's there to clean her up. So it's,
and she even gives her,
it seems like a philosophical change, but it's not what she states philosophically is not what she really does. She never runs away in the first place. So
well, she's a beer. As a beer, she's not going to be running away.
Sure, but she is there for the drama even at the beginning, but she's not nearly as caring or understanding, as it were. So maybe I'd say change.
Okay. I mean, I think the idea, the fact that she gives her hair, so in other words, she's willing to sort
much
of
more nurturing at the end.
Expose her, her I don't want to say filtered because that's not right, but her au naturel look, because she almost uses as a shield, and by giving that to Sin-Dee while Cindy's hair is getting washed and dried, that does indicate you couldn't imagine Alexandra doing it at the beginning.
Right.
She was just, that didn't seem to be even something she would consider doing. But that's a small thing. So yeah, I think very possibly. Anybody else have the same or a counter argument?
I was so confident before this call that I knew what the answer to this was, and then right before this started, I had a little brain thought, and the whole tower came crumbling down, and I went, "Oh my God, I don't know." I was absolutely sure that Alexandra was steadfast, because for me, I was looking at it and I was like, at the beginning, Sin-Dee is just raging, from the moment she finds out about this, that she's just off running, kicking indoors, doing everything. And then by the end, I was looking at her, and that moment when she's looking at Alexandra, and then she just goes, "You two deserve each other." And then she just sort of quietly walks away. And I was looking at that change in temperament, and I was sort of it felt like there was a movement there. And then I was thinking about it, and then I was thinking about that last moment when she gives her the hair, because I was thinking, this whole thing starts because Alexandra tells Sin-Dee a half-truth. Basically, to save her dignity at the expense of her friend. Right? Because in doing that, she lets her friend go off half-cocked, and so Cindy's going into that final argument, and then she sort of gets knifed by Chester when he's like, "Yeah, I've slept with your best friend," right? Which obviously Alexandra knew the whole time. So when you look back at that first choice, you go, right, she was totally she
was not being honest. She was not genuine. Yeah.
Right. But then at the very end, what does she do? She takes off her hair and gives it to her friend, thereby sacrificing her own dignity to protect her friends. And I went, the exact opposite of what she did at the beginning. And I went,
yeah.
Darn it.
Yeah, but I think you just made that little brain, I would say brain fart or whatever, the aha moment you had right before we came on, I think exactly encapsulates that, and for the right reason. Because I think you captured the beginning point, which is where she is lying. She's hiding her own culpability to protect herself at the expense of her friend. So, and at the end, it's the reverse. That would indicate a pretty big change.
And meanwhile, the whole time, Sin-Dee is actually there for her.
Right.
She stops what she's doing in the middle of her whole tirade to be like, no, we have to go to see her show. And so there's that sense in which which again sort of saves Alexandra from embarrassment, because otherwise she would have had literally no one to perform for. So the
Right.
fact that like Sin-Dee so there is that sense of like, yeah.
That's a great point. That's a strong indication of influence as well.
Yeah.
Or other perspective of Sin-Dee. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, great. Main character problem solving style. So this would be what we were talking about with the reference to gender earlier, the mental sex. So what does our main character, Alexandra, does she use a linear sort of male mental sex way of thinking or problem solving? Or is she more a holistic and female mental sex problem solving technique, style? And how do we know? Okay.
I mean, I would say holistic because just nothing in it seemed to be very linear to begin with. But that's just the whole movie itself, not her character.
Well, and again, she makes the mistakes she makes are in those trying to balance the relationship between people as opposed to looking at cause and effect. You know, if I tell a half truth here, it's going to come back and bite me. I shouldn't do that. I'll just tell her the whole truth, and she'll get mad at me, but we'll get over it. But she doesn't. She tries to maintain that relationship, and for her own purposes, maybe. But the other thing is, you can look at Sin-Dee, and Cindy's pretty damn linear. Literally.
Plus, there was that little moment. I mean, it was brief, but it was when she was talking with the guy, the other client guy in the car, and he's like, come on, it's Christmas or whatever. And then she says something like, all right, since it is Christmas and I do need the money, I'll do this, but you have to put the money on the table or on the dashboard and da 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 da. And it felt very much like that thing where you're adding up a bunch of reasons to rebalance the scale, in one direction, and sort of setting up preconditions, like you have to set the money on the thing, and I won't do this, and I'll and it felt that to me felt like that was a holistic.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a very great example. Right. Okay. Good. Perfect. Okay, now plot drivers. We're sort of switching gears here, not looking at characters, but really looking at the events in the overall story primarily. So do actions drive decisions or decisions drive actions? And these are sort of the big plot points.
I was pretty sure it was decisions, because it was obviously Alexandra's decision to tell her friend what she told her that started everything. It wasn't an action. They were just talking, and then she's just like, it became an action very, very quickly. But she decides to tell her about her boyfriend cheating on her. She could have not said that, and nothing would have happened.
Okay, and then we'll give some other examples where
okay, I'm going to keep going.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
any act turn should also be of the same nature, and also at the very end, what wraps up the story should also be the event that wraps up the overall story should also be the same nature. So if it's a decision in one place, it should be a decision.
These decisions about the whole story, yeah.
Yeah, but only we're really talking, major shifts, not point to point, not little point to point, scene to scene. Well, what is so you see that the initial the inciting event is her decision to mention that Chester has been cheating on her,
which then spurs her into action.
Right. Okay.
And then it obviously kind of everything always goes back and forth between action and decision after the initial one, which is why I normally look for the first thing. But
well, you have one big one that just sort of comes out of the blue and changes the direction of the story, is when Sin-Dee decides to, it's like, oh, let's, she's trying to find Chester, and then she just literally stops, and we gotta go see the performance.
Right.
Like, oh,
but she's trying to find Chester, and she all of a sudden decides to instead find the girl that starts with the letter D instead. That was something else. Like go find Chester.
That was just because she couldn't find Chester. Nobody would tell her. Remember, so that was sort of a dead end. But
yeah, so then She went and found the girl instead. But yeah, and then, oh, we have to stop this right now so I can go see my friend sing.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the sort of like the midpoint. Ultimately, doesn't it, how does it wrap up the overall story? How does it sort of,
Sin-Dee decides to walk away from them, right?
Right.
You
Right.
deserve each other, so she's done with them, or she's done with him at least.
right, and that pretty much ends the conflict. I mean, you starts off with her tearing her up, trying to find her pimp, ends up with her basically dumping him. So that's the end of that drama. So I mean, yeah, that sounds like
Because he decides to tell on the friend because it's like they're in the middle of an argument. But
right, but
Can I-
yeah, and you have the fact that you have these people come in the middle of it. Those are those actions, and I mean, you see action decision everywhere, but the ones that really turn it are seem to be decisions.
Can I, at the risk of making a fool of myself, can I counter argument a little bit and like in a
Absolutely.
sneaky way? Because my thought was actually was that Alexandra is a beer, and because Sin-Dee is so clearly a doer, and I thought based on tendency alone, almost, that I was inclined to say it has to be action driven because it felt like Alexandra was so clearly unwillingly participating in this. I mean, she goes so far out of her way to say again and again, I don't want any part of this. I won't go along with this. Like, if the second there's drama, I'm out of this. Like, and I felt like they had hammered home that so strongly, and that kind of informed the way I started looking at that. So I thought of it as being action driven in the sense that like she never would have made that first comment if it weren't for the fact that this was the day that Sin-Dee got out of jail. You know, and that sort of was the thing that forced the issue, because she's like, well, she's going to find out sooner or later, so she has to. I don't know. I don't know if that's worth anything. But
The thing is, if it's an action, the way I think of it is actions happens, decisions are made.
That's yeah.
You know, and that's the easy distinction between the two. So an action sort of happens externally, and a decision is something that is mulled over, and you know, because it could be also deliberation. It doesn't have to actually be the choice, but just like
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So in the restaurant, when the pimp is talking to the cab driver, and it seems like all of a sudden he decides to tell him that these girls with the mother-in-law, that these girls are prostitutes and that he's a client. So is that an example of decision on?
Well, that is a decision that certainly causes a lot of action. I'm not sure that that's a driver, but yes, that is a decision. Again, we're looking at, you have to remember when we pick action or decision, we're really picking the story driver as action or decision. So, but yes, that would be a decision, just not necessarily a story driver.
To your point, Audrey, I often find that the nearest backstory decision, the decision that was most recently, not that when the story starts, but prior to that, is the counter to the action or decision. So if it's a decision story to start, I find that the backstory, the latest event in the backstory, is probably an action. So it might be that the backstory action of her being released from jail at least somewhere prompts the influence or influences the decision for Alexandra to confess.
Right, and it's the decision that changes the course of events. That's the important part. That's what the driver does. It changes the course of events.
But then I think about the ending of the movie, and I'm like, if it weren't for the cup full of piss, those two would have gone their separate ways. You know, they might not have actually reconciled. And it's that forces them. And I know it sort of does end with the decision with the changing of the hair in a sense, but I felt like since that was so close to the end, it felt almost.
So that was relationship.
That was a relationship. That wasn't the overall story.
And MCIC said the overall story ends when she stops pursuing the pimp.
I mean, I'd say with the action of the piss, the question is, was that just was that the the trigger, or is that the actual thing that changes how things go from then? Because if he threw piss and she didn't make that change, that decision change, it really, throwing the pee on it didn't do anything to change the course of the events. Her decision to leave did.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, remember, it's really what forces the change of events. So she decides, I'm done with you, and then based on that, she leaves. They leave.
Mm.
You know, she wouldn't. I mean, it's really all compact right in there, so it's not necessarily nice and clean. But you're at the if you looked at the beginning and you said, all right, she has, you know, there's a decision she makes that kicks this off, which has to do with, you know, finding her pimp because she's been wronged. And then ultimately she finds that, yes, she has still been wronged, even more wronged than she even knew that she'd been wronged. But the thing that changes it, which just says, okay, I'm done. You know, that's really where it just sort of wraps this story and closes that overall story. If you could come up with, you know, I don't think getting out of jail is a sufficient one, because that kind of happens off screen and is not really relevant. And what happens if she'd already been out of jail for a month? Would that have changed anything?
Yeah, and I guess you're right in the sense that, you know, nothing forced Alexandra to tell that specific half truth. You know, like, I mean, she could have she could have let it, she could have said nothing, or she could have, you know, whatever. Like it ultimately was her decision to say, to present that little piece of information to.
And think of it as an
Sin-Dee.
author. You know, when we're looking at Dramatica, we're looking at kind of it from that God's eye view, and say, I want to be able to kick off this story. What would kick off the story for my characters?
Yeah.
What is it? What event might change everything? Oh yeah, Alexandra decides to drop this little bomb
Right.
on Sin-Dee. It's like, oh, that sure changed the course of events of this story. If she didn't drop that bomb, it would not have, nothing that followed would have happened.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
Well,
that's
because right, she could have gotten out of jail and gone somewhere else, and the rest of the story wouldn't have happened. But
or she could have gone out of jail and Alexandra never said anything, and
right,
it would have just it would have been a really boring story.
right. But that, yeah, I concede it is.
Okay.
Thank you for entertaining my idea, though.
No, this is exactly the forum for this. That's exactly, this is perfect. All right, so story limit. This is what either brings the conflict to a head. Either you run out of time or you run out of options. One's a time lock and one's an option lock. A time lock is a deadline or a specific amount of time. An option lock is either a certain number of options, or you can also look at it spatially and say a certain amount of space that needs to be covered. Like, you know, going from New York to LA or whatever. So anybody have a thought as to what it is in this film and what the options or the deadlines are, depending on if it's an option lock, if it's a time lock?
I think it's an option lock.
Okay. And what are the options? What options are being tested, and when they run out, it brings about the climax?
Well, it seems like they're hunting the fellow that the fellow of her dreams, the pimp. Find the pimp.
So the hooker's trying to find the pimp, right?
Because he cheated on her.
Right.
I mean, the option is, are we going to be together or are we not going to be together? Basically.
Well,
that might be.
Is he cheating or is he not cheating once he finds him? But there's not a time limit on it. She could find him tomorrow. She could find him in a week. Like, we don't need to find each other right this second. It doesn't matter.
Also, I would say there's only so many people she can ask for like where he is. There's only so many places she can look, like, you know, whereas you were exactly right. I mean, presumably she could go on forever, I guess, you know, but there's no, we must find him by 9 o'clock or we die.
Right, because I mean, for instance, you know, if it was all about Alexandra and her performance at 9 p.m. or whatever,
Right.
then you might have had a time lock, but it wasn't. That wasn't it. That was just an event in the storyline. So yeah, so it's an option lock. That, I mean, I just didn't want you just to pick it. I wanted to actually to you know, indicate. All right, so story outcome, success or failure. This is kind of, you know,
Well, they found him. But I mean, if the object was to find him,
well,
I don't know
is that the
necessarily
goal?
that that's really what the whole story is about, is just finding him. I don't know that that's what the argument is about.
Right. So,
Yeah.
do you know what? Well, does it feel like a success or a failure?
It felt like failure to me.
Right, like, because they aren't together, they aren't happy at the end. Well, I wouldn't say they aren't happy at the end.
Well, that's a separate question.
I know it's a separate question, but they aren't together. They do break up. She finds
I
him,
think it's a, I'm
but they
sorry.
break up.
I think it's a success and a tragedy.
Well, it can't be both. You can't.
Well, the success is
a tragedy is a failure or bad story.
outcome and the judgment, isn't it? That's tragedy.
Oh, you mean a personal
that's
tragedy? No. So, a tragedy is where you have failure and you have bad. So that, and just like
It's
a
bittersweet, and then there's, I can't remember the other one.
well, then there's a happy ending. Triumph. A
Well,
triumph.
there's 4.
Yeah. So there's a happy. Okay. So there's the success failure, which is a personal tragedy, and then the failure good, which is the personal triumph. That those are the two bittersweets. They're two flavors of bittersweet. So let's answer this one first. Judgment, good or bad? Where are we at the personal level and working out the sort of whatever personal angst is in this story? We're in a better place or in a worse place? In a good place or a bad place? Are things resolved or unresolved?
I think the scene of the guys throwing the cup at her and they end up in the laundromat, I think it shows that they still love each other. But as far as story success, I think it's a bad outcome.
Well, okay.
And I definitely disagree with that. I feel like I think it's a good decision for Sin-Dee to walk away instead of continuing with drama.
Okay, so you actually, yeah. So, David, you were using judgment to explain both the outcome and judgment. So what you were actually saying was it was good for them personally, but it was a failure. It was bad. It's unsuccessful. Things did not work out. The hooker did not successfully work out her relationship or her business relationship with her pimp. That was where it failed, right? Because she went to go sort of exact revenge, and that did not happen.
And they're still in this world, not judging the world negatively or positively, but no. Their status in life is the same as it was at the beginning of the film. So to me, that if it's not a failure, it's definitely not a success.
Well, I'm not.
Okay. They weren't after changing their lives. They were perfectly comfortable with their lives at the beginning of the film. So they weren't trying to change their life.
Right. I mean, at the beginning, they basically are employed streetwalkers, hookers. And at the end, at least not with Chester, they are, you know, the principal, the protagonist is definitely is no longer employed. So, I mean, we can leave this one alone and see what we define the goal as. It might be easier at that point for us to then say, oh, was it success or failure, right?
What about the, I think you've mentioned this before, that not just the main and the impact character, but like in the overall world, like.
Well, that's what these questions, particularly the outcome, is everybody, not the main. It's not a main influence character question. It is really you know, look at where the protagonist is, or, you know, is the protagonist, did they achieve the goal or not?
Yeah, and the taxi driver has, I mean, is it a failure or a success for him? You know, I think he's in a world of shit. You know, so for what it's worth, his counter story to the main story.
No, he remember he tries to doesn't he try to assassinate a candidate? And then isn't that a failure? Isn't that a failure? But he is in a better. I think it's a failure good story. I can't remember because of what he is able to save Jodie Foster, right? She's in a really good place at that point, and it's because of him. Remember, she's able to get out of that. So let's just leave this alone until we know what the goal is. Once we have the goal established, it'll be a lot easier to say if it's success or failure.
Okay.
All right. So let us now start narrowing down the domains. Okay, so the idea of this is we have 4 through lines, you know, 4 perspectives: main character, influence character, overall story, and relationship through line, and we need to line them up with the 4 domains in the structure, 1 to each. And we know that our main character is a B'er, so she's going to either be in fixed attitude or psychology manipulation. But the overall story can be anywhere. Anybody have an idea of preference for aligning these or picking these? You can start with whichever one you feel most strongly about. It's always the best.
Sin-Dee just feels like activity, obviously.
Oh, Sin-Dee? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which would put, so you're saying the influence character as activity, and that would put our main character in psychology or manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the overall story?
That would have to be fixed. I don't think the whole overall story people are actually in a situation. I feel like they all have their fixed mind on this is how I think and feel.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
That was my impression, that the overall story was definitely, and because I kept thinking about like how the conflict played out in that through line, and it felt like the actual sticking points were always somebody knows something and they're not telling me it, you know, or like I need some specific piece of information.
Yeah, or they think a certain way. The mother-in-law, the wife, Resmick, look at those ancillary characters, and you're going to start to see the overall story characters a little bit better.
Yeah.
And yeah, it didn't seem to be that. You know, now it's really surprising considering it's about hookers and pimps. No one had, not even the police had a problem with it. And I thought that was really interesting, you know, so it's not like, because it's not their status as, you know, underworld or whatever. That really wasn't an issue. It had much more to do with, you know, people's attitudes about, at least it seemed to be more of an attitude, or even not more. I think that's actually pretty good, which would put the relationship in a situation which is basically they're sort of 2 peas in a pod. You know, they're kind of bound together by the nature of their job and who they are.
Yeah.
Does that sound? Is everybody on board with that, or we've got a different option? I mean, it sounds pretty good to me, actually.
I'm a follower.
Pardon?
You guys lead, now follow.
He's a follower.
Okay.
What was the thing for the main character in manipulation?
I'm not sure that we vocalized that. Okay, go ahead. You're on a roll.
I'm sorry. Well, I talk too much. I always do. Well, my thought was because she's trying to convince everybody to come to her show, you know, she's sort of like, she's trying to get Sin-Dee to sort of, well, she's trying to sort of control Sin-Dee, pull her back, but not physically, but like, you know, and also even just the fact that she starts it out by sort of, I mean, she's manipulating Sin-Dee, right? By telling her part of the truth, but not all of the truth. So that felt like, to me, that seems like that was,
But then not wanting any
putting-
drama. But
yeah.
then see her herself beating up a dude like not too long
Right.
after that.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, David had to leave. He's in a different time zone.
Hmm.
Oh, Johnny? Oh, you were saying it to him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No.
Are there, I can't think of any other examples of her use, you know, in a sort of the psychology domain later on, you know, particularly when, you know, with regards to her singing. Oh, what's the song that she sings? It's not Somewhere in the Rainbow.
Toyland.
Toyland.
Right?
Yes. That was really strange. I mean, that's like from the 50s.
Yeah, well, and so I guess, I mean, her concern there was literally performing. So, I mean, that feels pretty, if it's, feels like manipulation or psychology, I guess. Well, because I mean, she's influencing everybody by what she's, how she's,
Doing because she's a beer. Like you're
yeah,
saying.
you know.
Right.
I guess I would have thought maybe Sin-Dee is in fixed attitude
Mhm.
and the objective story is an activity. You know, because I don't know, is because she's a changed character, right? So that
No, you
might
mean,
be.
no, you don't mean Sin-Dee, you mean
Oh,
Alexandra.
sorry. Oh, I got it wrong. Alexandra. Sorry, apologies. That kind of makes a big difference. Yeah. So the main character was in mind, right? And then the objective story was an activity. It seems much more like a start story than a stop story, doesn't it?
We hadn't picked that one yet, so I don't know.
Yeah. And like her personal thing,
Oh, because we have to look at Alexandra. She's the start.
yeah, like if you were saying if she changes, right, I could see going from mind to universe because she takes off the thing and takes off the wig and hands it over. I don't know. I guess I see all the stuff that Sin-Dee does as protagonist in the objective story, whereas the influence is, oh, this is my best friend who slept with such and such. Am I gonna?
Well, she doesn't find that out until way late.
Yeah.
See, but I
No,
don't.
no, but she knows it. She knows what she did, right?
Oh, you mean
That's what it ends.
Alexandra.
That's like
Oh,
that's the
yeah.
last. Oh yeah, but yeah, Alex that does. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's letting her go through all this stuff and
But I don't think that the thing that stops me from saying that is I feel like she's not the only one with the fixed attitude, Alexandra. Like I feel like the
Everyone
mother-in-law, you know, the Chester himself, like everybody that felt like everybody was sort of sticking, like each person is like, I've got my fixed way of looking at it. I mean, even the whole argument about what's cheating and what isn't, and like yada yada yada, and each person being like, this is this and that is it. Like, but having it felt like the conflict was coming from that more than it was like even the fact that like Sin-Dee wanted to go get Dinah, not like the point wasn't to beat her up. The point was so that we can have an argument, like so that you can be there, so that we can argue and we can, you know, I don't know.
Well, even that cab driver with the mother-in-law decided to show her where the son-in-law was because of his fixed attitude. So somebody might be onto something here.
Yeah, that, I mean, I kind of agree with that. I think the overall story does feel like people's beliefs are what are motivating them, and there's a big clash, you know, like the one that Chris was talking about. the other cab driver who decides to rat on Resnick because, you know, he doesn't really agree with what his extracurricular activities are. So he brings the mother-in-law to where he knows the pimp, where he thinks Resnick is, which he in fact is. That definitely seems to be much more just, you know, my way of thinking is right and yours is wrong, and it coming into clash for everybody. You know, and I think even if you look at the cops and their interaction with the John, it's like, look, you know, you've been driving back. We know who you are. You can't pretend like you're an innocent guy here. You know,
They knew who Alexandria was, so they knew who he was.
right? And they knew he'd been
So
driving
that's
around
what
for
she's like,
40
all right, why do you owe her money? Like, they already know.
Right. They're just calling him on this. He's trying to, you know, well, I'm an innocent guy, and you know, it's like, yeah, no, you're not. But as far as start and stop, I mean, you brought that up, Jim. So what does Alexandra need to begin to do as opposed to, she's a change character, so as you're saying, she's got to step up as opposed to get the chip off her shoulder. So what how does that?
She's like overtly going around, hey, go to my thing, but she's not really like, I don't think that she's doing anything wrong. You know, like she's her own worst enemy sort of thing.
Well, but it started out with her lying.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if she hadn't have told that lie, none of this would have happened. So, I mean, and I know that's only one example, but it does feel like she made this mess. Like
Yeah,
if
and
she
also-
had just told the truth, or like, I mean, there would have been
Or not even
probably
brought
still
up.
hurt
She must
feelings,
have some
but
youth.
And also what she's doing is asking everyone to come out and support her, right? And be there for her, knowing full well that she's done the very opposite to her, you know, supposed best friend. So she's a phony.
No, but that's the point, that what you were saying, she starts to be there for her at the end. And that's her
Right.
best friend. Nobody shows up for her, probably because she never shows up for them. And that might actually be the whole theme of her, is that she actually isn't there for any of them, but she wants them to be there for her. She's not even there for her best friend, and they all know it.
Right, and she's got to get past that. And that's, yeah, I do think that it's that she isn't. She has to get past that, because that's why she doesn't continue on with Sin-Dee. You know, she's like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm not going to support you in this thing. I'm going to go do my own thing. You know, and she, at the end, she actually doesn't do that. She doesn't run away. She doesn't go off and say, hey, I'm not part of this. She actually stays and helps her friend, you know, supports a friend at the end. I think it does, to me, feel more like a stop story than a start. She does seem to be, I mean, it's not really strongly emphasized, but she does seem to be her own worst enemy.
yeah. Well, I mean, she's like,
Wouldn't that be a start, though?
Hmm?
Wouldn't her starting to support her friends be a start, not a stop? What does start mean then?
Start means, in other words, okay, the easiest way I think of it as, okay, someone's problem, they can't overcome it until they grow to learn to step up. And as opposed to someone who steps in and messes things up and has to learn to hold back. That's a stop story. It's the learning to hold back in order to grow, or learning to step forward in order to grow. The stepping forward is a start. Stepping back or holding back is a stop story. And so the fact that she puts out there right at the beginning a lie, you know, if she could learn, you know, you don't need to put those lies out there, and you know, then there wouldn't have been all that friction. But she was covering her own ass by putting out this half-assed explanation. And that created the problem.
I also think about that scene, the other scene with the other John in the car, where, I mean, it's not super strong, and it's not like you blame her for it, but like she's kind of hostile to the guy, and it feels like like that probably does not help. Like that situation might not have actually turned out as nastily as it did if she hadn't have been bringing this kind of this attitude,
negative energy,
if you will, not to be too California about it, but
Well, I'm just thinking about, here you have a guy who's trying to become aroused, and she's clearly not being supportive of that.
Mhm.
Right.
That's why I meant by negative energy. Just
no, I got you.
Well, let's try this and see where we are, and if we can always back up. And we're doing pretty well time-wise. So we've said this is an influence character, so the main character is there, and then this is the overall story. All right. So that brings us to the next level down, which is to identify the concerns. So one way to do that, first thing is just to mention is that, the way you do is when you pick any one of the concerns, it picks all four. So you really have to think of them as a cluster. So you've got past, understanding, memory, and developing a plan as one, how things are changing, doing, impulsive responses, and playing a role as another, the present, gathering information, contemplation, and conceiving an idea as the third, and the future, obtaining, innermost desires, and changing one's nature as the fourth. And what I like to think of is, okay, either pick the ones that you think are possibly in, or if some are out, point those out too, because that just makes the remaining possible choices less. I know for me, it did not feel like a future, obtaining, innermost desires, changing one nature story. It doesn't feel like that to me, but that's just me, especially when you're talking about everybody's innermost desires for the main for the overall story.
Yeah, I think either innermost desires or impulses seem to fit the best to me.
Impulsive fits, I think, a lot better.
Yeah,
I was
tend to be,
thinking,
but
like,
there's the sexual gratification that could be impulse, that could be desire.
But it's not shown to be desires. That's my. It does not seem like.
It seems like it's much more spur.
Yeah, but especially in the overall story, if you think of Sin-Dee as the hooker, she seems to be very impulsive.
but that's not her. It's not her story.
No. The hooker,
as a protagonist, she's
the hooker is very impulsive. The Resnick, the cab driver, seems to be pretty impulsive. The John seems pretty impulsive.
The mother-in-law.
Yeah, those characters seem just to be kind of, seem to be a lot more impulsive. If you pick impulsive responses, innermost desires is going to be up there as a potential benchmark.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
So it can end up there, but they're definitely, you're not, when you pick one thing, it doesn't get rid of anything else. It's just positioning things.
Plus, there's a lot of value and worth fighting, like the money through their transactions. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, and confidence and worry, especially with worry with the performer, but also worry with in the Resnick sub story ish. The mother-in-law, confidence of Resnick. That does seem to be in there a bunch. How about some other characters? What about Chester or what's her name?
See, I actually had a talk. I didn't. My take on it was that it was memory, understanding the past, and conceptualizing.
Okay.
Because first of all, in the relationship, the problem lies in the past, right? She cheated with the boyfriend, and there's nothing she can do about it now. But that is the actual source of the problem between them in their relationship. And it felt like memories was sort of what we were all coming into conflict over in the present. Because what's really setting her off is the fact that she's like, I thought I had this great relationship with this guy, only now it turns out he's a cheater and da 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 da. And it's like, she's trying to reconcile that. And like the whole point, it felt like, of bringing together all of these people is that they're going to be like, we're going to like set this straight and like get to a state where we agree on what happened, who did what, da 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 da, all of that. And also, especially because when I was looking at that issue of falsehood, and to me, I was like, that felt like that was, it stood out to me, and I felt like, I don't know.
Well, in that instance, then I would argue, I would make a case for Jim's argument, which would be that if this is where we're going, that the past would be the overall story, and that the falsehood and stuff would actually be in that relationship through line. Because
Like
falsehood is really most predominantly in the relationship.
Oh, no. Everyone is lying. Absolutely everyone is lying. The cab driver's lying to his family about why he's going out. You know, you have Chester lying to both of the women about who he's sleeping with. You have the women lying about who they're with to each other. I think everyone's lying. And trying to find out who's lying and figure out all of that, to me, I felt like that was everybody was in that same boat.
Whereas, and the mother wall was super suspicious, so she went and gathered evidence.
Yeah.
Because no, when I saw that group, that's what I was thinking too. Which is why when you're like impulsive, I was like,
And what Sin-Dee really wants is to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That felt, I don't know.
Yeah, because you don't really see much wisdom, enlightenment, skill, or experience with Sin-Dee in that at all. Like,
but you do see a lot of instinct.
Yeah, she does. She knows where to go to talk to people, and she's like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure because of this," but I don't know.
Okay, and how do we? I see. We have state of being, sense of self, situation, and circumstances for Alexandra. How would you define that in this context?
Well, I mean, I guess I was thinking about, well, first of all, I mean, because she seems very much, I mean, it's very much about the situation and circumstances that she's stuck in. I mean, there was, I don't know. I mean, there was something there. I felt like there was something going on with the sense of self and the state of being. The fact that she wants to be this performer, but she's not actually very good, and it turns out that she's sort of having to pay to perform and so on and so forth, felt like there was.
Well, that does claim the desirability on that one.
Yeah, that felt very much like I was thinking that she's got to be somewhere in that ballpark, because I don't know. Well, yeah.
But yeah.
And the relationship of fate and destiny, prediction, and interdiction.
Well, because she's trying to interdict in the sense of like, I know I've already slept with this, like, it's inevitable that this is going to come out eventually.
Right.
The truth about this is, but well, unless maybe if I can like set it in, if I can do something and like get this set off in the, maybe it won't, like, she's sort of like, if I can get them broken up or something, like, or there's that sense, then like, then maybe we can avoid that or something. You know?
Well, I was like, I think that she, like, she obviously did not necessarily, I don't think she was being that manipulative with her lie. I think she was just actually off the cuff being, oh, like, finally you're getting rid of this guy, because we all know he always cheats on you, because everyone does know that he always cheats on her. And then not thinking about, oh yeah, I also did this, but still keeping that back because she doesn't want to drag herself into it. But that would just be, yeah, they're going to break up. They're not going to stay together. If you're looking at fate, that's going to happen. I can predict they're going to break up just because of the situation. That's not a hard thing to predict.
You know what I'd like to do? I'm going to follow the two of your instincts. Because it's a holistic thinker, and I can guarantee you that it's a weakness of most men. And I mean, and you both seem to be feeling very strongly about it. I'm game to go into it. So let's do that. So we're saying this is going to be the concern. So that's all of those. I'm not sure I understand memory at the moment, but that doesn't. but I can suspend my disbelief. So let's look
Jim
at.
wants to say something.
What? Yes.
Usually in the holistic stories, the concerns aren't as noticeable, and the issues.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say that. Not for that reason, but I was just thinking the concerns really don't seem to read well at all, whereas the issues stand out very strongly. So yeah, I agree completely with what you said. Not for the same reason, but completely same conclusion. So this is the overall story. We have truth, falsehood, evidence, and suspicion, and then we also have the if I zoom this, does this no, you don't see that zoom, right? No. Yeah, unfortunately. Maybe I can do this though. It only gets so big. All right. Okay, so any thoughts on where we're looking at where we go? And of course, you can look to the elements underneath it, any one of these to bolster your ideas, or is there an idea that you think we probably shouldn't go? Anyone like a dynamic pair that you think is stronger than the other? Like truth and falsehood versus evidence and suspicion. All of them are going to be in the story. So it's never about picking one and losing the others. It's just about where the focus is, trying to find that center of gravity for the cause of the conflict.
Actually, suspicion and evidence more, because you get a lot of that chaos with but that's, I mean, this was specific character. Actually, I think it's kind of chaotic for all of them. Their whole lives are chaos.
But is chaos causing is it chaos that's causing the problem? I'm not sure that
chaos is probably the symptom of it. You just have chaos because of the problem.
So
it doesn't cause it, no.
Right.
Okay, is that what we're looking for? The actual problem?
Yeah, we're actually or this. You can look for the symptom too. That's fine.
Okay.
But we're looking for the thing that is sort of the locus of where conflict is growing and affects everything else around it, and in the context of the overall story. If you want to look at, we can go to the main character or one of the other through lines too. But the main character it's a change character, so whatever we pick as the problem element is also the problem and solution are going to be the problem and solution for the main character. So that's another way to look at it. So if we look over here in our main character domain, we have state of being, sense of self, situation, and circumstances. And is there a dynamic, just looking at the elements, are there any dynamic pairs that look like they might be the problem and solution or the symptom and response? Or any element itself, or any of them?
Well, there's her ability and desire again, but
yeah. I do like, I like aware and self-aware for Alexandra. That feels like that kind of makes sense because it feels like she's kind of very self-focused in a way at the beginning, and there's a lack of awareness for the other friend. Like, you know what I mean? But my, if I had to pick the problem element, my inclination would be to say probably inequity feels the most true, or because I keep thinking like it's all about like lies and mistreatment and the sense of like well, and the poverty. I mean, the fact that
Right.
like nobody's got any money, like all of that. But even just like at the end, like the thing that Chester does, and he's like, all of these women who are being treated so terribly by this one man, you know, like who's two-timing them and doing this and doing that, and then Alexandra's cheating. So that sense felt like I don't know, that felt like that was a contender for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inequality and equality.
And equity would be the solution.
Well, and because that felt like that was the solution that got employed at the end in the relationship.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
know,
well,
where
let's-
like,
Hey, let's just try it. You know, why not?
Mhm.
Let's just say this is the main character problem, and
And that
This-
makes the self-aware being the symptom and the aware being the response.
right. So this is the being too aware of your own self and not thinking about others. And so,
Mhm.
when I'm thinking about myself, I got to look outside and what are other people doing? So
Mhm.
let's just look at the story engine because that'll give us a better view of a good portion of what we have. So we have for the overall story, then it becomes the problem is inequity, but the symptom is speculation. What is it? Yeah, there we go. So speculation is an extension of possibilities into the future, and the response is projection, which is that was the possible, what could possibly be a problem in the future, but projection is okay. No, what's likely going to happen? That if we look at it likely, that'll solve problems. So I think that you could see that. I mean, you could see that in a number of different places. With Sin-Dee saying, "Oh, you know, who's he sleeping with? You know, who is it that he's sleeping with? You know, all these different possible people it might be, and what's that going to mean for me? And you know, projection as well. It's probably going to lead to this. You know, you have the mother-in-law speculating, and the wife speculating. You know, about what it is, but the wife looks at it and says, "Yeah, okay, but this is likely not going to be a problem for us, Mom. Why you don't keep on creating trouble?" Because it's really not really going to upset everything. You're looking at what it could possibly be, and it's like, no, it's mind your own business. I mean, that would be the kind of thing you might see that as.
and the whole thing with Sin-Dee about like, where is Chester? Does anyone know where he might be? How can I find him? You know, and going around and being like, what people know, like it. And even the fact at the very beginning when Alexandra is sort of trying to still pull her back and be like, it's just a rumor, you don't know it, like if he's really done all of this stuff or whatever, and she's just like, well, we're gonna find out.
Now,
I don't know, how strict are we about the into the future part, you know?
Well, it is, because speculation is about something. I mean, it's about. I mean, it is part of into the future in the sense that even if it's, I know this is in the context of memories or of the past or memory, but it's really still looking at it as, well, what could it have led to, or what might this lead to? You know, whatever happened in the past, where is that going to lead? And then projection is what's the likely thing that it's going to, all right, you can even say have led to. let's look at a couple things. I wanted to see if we can get a full thing here. Okay, so we have our main character's unique abilities, either state of being or situation. This would be the thing that would make her uniquely capable of having the overall story end in success, which it doesn't. Her critical flaw of either interpretation or conditioning. So one of those two things are going to be the things that undermine her ability to, her unique ability. This is hard if it looks like it's going to be a failure story. Or we can even just look at the benchmarks. So the overall story. Oh,
Could we also try would putting failure in as the outcome change our options at all, or?
Yeah, it would narrow them, but I'd rather not do that right now. I mean, we can back it that, yes, we can try that, but I'd like us to do it roundabout to see if we find other ways to answer that question, and by answering the things that we feel pretty well about. So for instance, the benchmark for the overall story has two possible choices: impulsive responses or contemplation.
Impulsive responses.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about the ending scene where we get everybody is screaming at each other in multiple different languages. There's a baby crying, like literally, like knee-jerk reactions. People are hitting each other. There's like all sorts of, and it felt like that grows and grows and grows. You know, like the closer we get to the final confrontation, the more of that we have. You know, until
that would be what a benchmark is for. So if we selected that, we have a failure story.
Okay.
You see, that's why I like you to use based on other things that you feel pretty strongly about, just so that we can back into it. And what it says, so we're down to a single story form, and what this says is that our main character's unique ability is her state of being. So literally, kind of like how her condition, you know, how upset she is or what she's feeling at the moment. And the critical flaw, though, is her conditioning, and her conditioning would be something that might either make her highly reactive to something or overreact to something, or to underreact to something that might affect how her state of being. Now it's a failure story, and the goal is memory. Oops, yeah. What would that be?
It's holistic.
Yeah, I know. Well, it seems like it would be something to be with, you know, there was, especially if you look at it from the point of view of the protagonist, who's, you know, that hooker who's recently gotten, who basically went to jail to cover for her job, or for her pimp.
Her fiance.
Fiance, right.
Even better.
Right. So she has this memory that things are great, and that
they just got engaged. That's how that starts, because she's gonna I'm gonna give you this news. It's real great because we're engaged. And Alexandra is just like, oh great, you're leaving the cheating bastard. And she's like, nope, I was gonna tell you that a month ago, before I went to jail, he asked me to marry him.
Right. So basically it's the whole idea, oh my gosh, I've been sitting on this for a month. All this stuff I've got these great memories to share, these events that have happened to me personally, and that all falls apart.
Well, and if you look at the consequence of the past, I feel like it's like leaving that past relationship behind. You know what I mean? It's like this question of, were we going to pick up where we left off, or are we going to, because I mean, obviously there's a break when she was in prison, and so she gets out again, and then there's that question of like, are we going to resume this thing? And then at the end, it's like, no, we're not, you know?
Right, because the past is that he's this, lying, whoring bastard, and that all comes out, and it's like, oh, well, okay, we're going to have to live with that,
I like that the issue with our influence character is interpretation, because the whole question is whether or not he's cheating on her, since he is a pimp and they sleep with other people all the time. Why is this instance cheating? What is happening different with this that makes this cheating when she's known about all of this stuff the whole time?
Well, because they got
She's
engaged.
interpreting it as cheating
Yeah,
this time.
right, because they engaged. That's why
Yeah.
it's cheating. Before they weren't, they weren't sworn to each other, but
Mhm.
now, a month ago they were, and
Yeah.
and so now that makes that changes everything.
Where's the main-
See, and I was thinking of that goal of memories as like,
Mhm.
like she's like, if the goal is like to reconcile all our memories together, like if we can agree on a workable account of what happened.
Well, okay,
You know,
this is remember, this is the overall story, so it's going to be not just
Everyone.
Yeah, it's going to be
Oh
everyone.
no, I know,
Yeah.
but like what I mean is, but Sin-Dee is leading the charge, but like her and Chester and Alexandra and all of these people, it's like, can we come up with can we agree on a set of things that like happened or whatever that will like satisfy us all, so that I can think that you're this and you can think that I'm that, and like I can think well of you, and do you know what I mean? Some way that we can agree on, which is sort of why they're arguing, is like, is this cheating? Is it not cheating? Yada, 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 because it's like, that would change the memory of what counts as what. And,
Right.
and like what they want is to get
That is
everybody
so-
to be able to,
That is
so
not the way men think. It is
well, I don't know. It doesn't make, I feel like that's, I don't know.
No, it's an excellent explanation, but it is
Yeah.
so not the way it's certainly not the way I think.
Yeah.
I understand.
No, like, but no, I get that. I get that. I had something that happened in my own real life that's like that. That I'm like, I just want us to sit down and we can talk about what happened so that we can agree. And then
Right.
changes your memory. It does completely change how you see the situation in the past based on what you agree right now. Like, I think y'all probably think if something happened in the past, it is what it is. But no, you can talk it out, and it changes what it means in the past because you're changing the interpretation of what it means.
What it means in the past, couching it that way, that makes perfect sense. Yes. Okay. Oy. Well, no, it's just the four. And that's why I wanted you guys to take the lead, because you were not only, I think, intuiting it pretty strongly, but you're also, both of you, very articulate in explaining it. So I think that's been really nice. Very unusual for these meetings, which is great. Oh, no. It's because this is an unusual film, and we happen to have several people who are like tuned into it. Okay, so then how about later? Let's move further into this. We're talking about, okay, we have our influence character, the benchmark of doing. Well, that's Sin-Dee. It makes perfect sense. I think that including her, stopping everything and dragging the other prostitute to be audience members for Alexandra, that was a major event difference. It seemed like for Sin-Dee, the doing starts off pretty frantic, and then starts to get a lot more organized as it goes on, as it sort of narrows in on toward the end. So I think that it becomes a lot less erratic. Her unique ability, you actually talked about this early on, about her instincts being, really, the influence character, that her instinct, this is Sin-Dee, her following her instincts, she's got very, very strong instincts, and that are, well, actually, does she have strong instincts, or are they off the mark on this?
I just randomly thought of another reason it could be another overall story point that brings it into memories, because Sin-Dee just got out of jail and her old John is looking for her because he remembers her and he really, really, really wants to see her.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
I wonder if with the critical flaw for Sin-Dee, if it's, I don't know if this would fit exactly in sense of self, but sort of, because you sort of get the impression that like she would never think that Alexandra would have cheated on with the boyfriend or whatever, and like that there's like,
So she's sort of blind to it, and that would undermine her credibility or affect.
yeah, well, like, and her sense that like we are best friends, you know, like the first thing she does, you find out she's got $2 left to her name, and she buys a bus ticket and a donut that she shares with Alexandra, and that sense of like we're pals, we're in it together, so on and so forth, and that more like, because I think if I remember, like sense of self as like the more subjective as opposed to state of being, right, or something.
Yes.
That sort of sense of like
who you are,
like we're pals or we're friends, you know what I mean? That would keep her from even thinking, oh, you would have done something like that, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
The critical flaw as a, sorry.
And then
the critical flaw is what holds you back from the story goal, right?
The critical flaw is what undermines the influence character. Critical flaw undermines the influence character's unique ability, and the influence character's unique ability is the quality that makes the influence character effective on pushing.
That's the main character.
Yeah, pushing the main character, you know, to grow. So ultimately, her instincts are stronger than her unique ability is stronger than her critical flaw, because she does successfully sort of force the main character to grow. And but unfortunately for the story, the main character's unique ability of conditioning undermines the main character's unique ability of state of being, which means that the overall story goal is not met. It's kind of this weird entanglement between the through lines. Let's talk a little bit about the relationship through line. So we have set as a situation. What in fact is their situation apart from, well, I'll just leave it at that and let you guys fill in those blanks. Now, and by situation, it's something that's a status, an external status that binds them together in a relationship. Well, I mean, it's an obvious one.
Yeah.
They're both transgender women.
Yeah.
And sex workers.
And sex workers. Right. So those are two things that are, you know, that affect the status as well as their external, especially, you know, external.
Could the iniquity be that like everyone kind of loves Sin-Dee and people don't like our main characters much? Because you see like with the Johns, like she's been gone for a month, she just got engaged, she has all these Johns looking specifically for her because they miss her. Then while the other one is having a show that nobody comes up to except for her. Like, did that make sense?
Yes.
Like there's an iniquity between them.
Right. But I'm not sure that would be a situational connection.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think the inequity felt. Sorry?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, I feel like there's this inequity of just like, again and again, you see that like Sin-Dee is showing up for Alexandra, and Alexandra is not in the same boat. Like she's not showing up in the same way for Sin-Dee and whatnot. And I mean, yeah. Well, and I mean, again, my thought with the concern of the past and all of that was also this inequity. I mean, I don't know if I'm distinguishing this enough from the overall story, but like just simply the fact that they've slept with the same guy and one of them knows about it and the other one doesn't.
Right.
And
Jim, you raise your hand.
Yeah. If I can make a slight little change to the story form,
All right.
it'll make what Audrey and Joe are saying all come together.
Okay.
Yes.
If you make, instead of inequity, if you make it inertia, then I think you'll find some really cool things as the problem.
Okay,
Should
so
also change. Okay. Because we
Does it
still
make
have fossil, we still have all the things that were
Yeah,
there.
everything else is the same. It's like a really slight change, but
Mhm.
because there's so much, I loved when somebody brought up chaos. And I actually thought that was like the response. Like it's just these like crazy chaotic moments that are going on. I also like the influence character problem of equity. Like she's gonna make the other girl pay for it. Her instinct is what's really all jacked up and is what's causing all the issues there.
Right.
And if you think of like the cab driver's wife, she's totally cool inertia, like, hey mom, shut up. Like he's doing his job. This is kind of like what we're gonna do. Whereas Sin-Dee is complete inertia, right? Because she wants, hey, I was gone, but we're still together. This is my boyfriend. I want to keep it going. Whereas Alexandra is much more, she'll change herself like a prostitute, like who, it doesn't matter what my name is, like, you know, doesn't matter where I'm from or whatever, I'll just be whoever you want me to be, because she'll just keep changing herself as a singer, like she'll pay for it to go there, which is like her super pathetic thing. I just think those two work really nicely as opposed to inequity and equity. So pretty much all the things everybody was saying, but now just like in context of inertia, I think makes, especially because the lie between them, the symptom is actually that, you know, she slept with her boyfriend as well and changed
The actuality is the symptom.
I would be inclined to almost do change as the problem and inertia as the solution, because in a way I felt like that was sort of what Sin-Dee especially wanted, was to get everything back to the way it used to be, like get our relationship back, like all of that kind of stuff. And because then it would switch, because then chaos would be like the symptom, and I feel like that's what everyone is treating as the problem. Like everyone's talking about drama, we don't want any drama, you know, they go into the any of the places and they're like, whoa, just like stop screaming, stop shouting, like, and that it feels for me like those characters were treating chaos as the problem and then responding with trying to reestablish order or like get things to, you know what I mean, calm down or although I don't know if that's.
It sounded like you were arguing for inertia for Sin-Dee though as the motivator there to keep the relationship as it was, which is what the problem would be, because it never becomes a solution.
Well, but my point is then change is the breakup, and the sense of like they don't actually achieve the return to the way things used to be. Right. So they wanted to get it back to that way, but so then they're forced to accept things are just going to change and break up and not be, I don't know.
Oh, but changing is like actually adapting, changing things, not just that the situation changed, but motivation towards continually to adapt into.
Right, and in fact, they don't change the relationship between the John and the prostitutes. Nothing in that relationship, in that world, really changed, and you just have. So that's one of the reasons why it's a failure story, is because they don't adopt something new. They don't really, I mean, they left him for the time being. We don't really know really what's going to happen after that, but the order of things did not change. You know, the way the world was set up really didn't change by the end of the movie. You know, it didn't change in the Armenian family. It didn't really change with Chester. I mean, you have him getting kicked out of his favorite donut place, but that's not change. That's just an inconvenience.
Well, but the thing is, she does, our protagonist does sort of, I guess, you're right. We don't know how long they're going to stay apart, but I feel like within the context of the argument that we're making, she does sort of walk away from that relationship. And that does feel like a change, at least in some sense.
But the judgment we said was good.
Well, remember, we do have
that would be the
in the relationship.
Oh no! I mean the relationship with the
Chester.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that I don't know that it really changed. She certainly left because she was pissed off.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is though, whether it was she was mad and she left, and really how much is it going to change the order of things? Is she no longer going to be a prostitute? I mean, remember, because that's where she was thinking she was going to be Mrs. Chester.
It's true. Yeah.
And
I think
they were laughing at her about that.
I think an example of successful change that would be that, he gives up his pimping days and they go together.
Or she does. Or he does. He makes her one of, she's no longer has to be. She's
right, she's the exclusive, instead of the status quo that he's been doing for.
Because in fact, he really doesn't even
ad infinitum.
And even a lip service about changing. He's not going to change his world.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Well, there was a reference to saving up money. So that seems like there was a promise of a different future.
Right, which of course never does not happen, or it's hard to know if it was really ever going to happen.
And his whole thing is like, hey, I just want to keep this as I'm trying to do a job here. You're messing my stuff up, this thing going on. He's over there on the other side taking care of that. You guys are messing it up. So everybody's kind of like got that subconscious drive to just be inert.
Keep on. Yeah.
It occurs to me that it might be that my problem here is that I don't maybe my understanding of symptom and response is a little off. Because I guess my thought was the symptom is what everybody is perceiving as the problem. And it felt like the chaos that was happening was sort of what people were picking up on and identifying as the problem. And that their response was to want to get back to order. Even if they didn't get there, but that's the direction they were moving in.
Let's take a look at that. Let's just.
I could just add one thing, like for the mother-in-law, her symptom was order. Like, hey, the man was here, he was serving his drinks, and now he's leaving, and then she goes to mess stuff up. She's like, no plan. She's just gonna just chaotically just drive me around until we find him.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna mess him up, which is the same thing that Sin-Dee was just like, when she goes into that hotel, she's just creating chaos everywhere, messing people's stuff up. Yeah, that's just
that actually, that does make sense. But if you,
well, and also because it feels like Sin-Dee's problem feels more like inequity than equity, right? Because if anything, it seems like she's being mistreated, and that like in really a lot of different ways at once. I don't know. Maybe not.
I would say she's being wronged and she wants revenge.
Well, right, but then she.
Yeah, when it comes to problems and response,
the...
I'm not good at where each one of those go. I'm like,
yeah, so her drive would be justice, which would be equity, and she doesn't get it. It's like,
right. I think actually, I think it does. It really does read a little better back with inertia, because it's. Wait, is that? No, that's not it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. No, you got it.
You got it.
That's it.
Right.
we-
So yeah, and I think if you look, especially if you're looking at the overall story, when characters think that when the order of things is wrong, like the pimp is not behaving like he's supposed to, then the response is to go and create a
Okay.
chaos.
That does make sense.
I mean, that's Tina in a nutshell. Not Tina, Sin-Dee in a nutshell. As a protagonist, not personally, but as a protagonist. And then, as you say, I'd say you have a handoff in that sort of sub story with Armenian family. You have the mother-in-law plays that same kind of ticket that Jim was talking about. I do think that does work.
Yeah.
A little
And
better.
the order of where he's supposed to be, right, where she keeps seeking him out, is off. Like he's supposed to be at the taco place, and he's not. So it kind of sends everything spiraling.
Could we try, if people would be willing, I don't know, could we try like, I think desire and ability as maybe Alexandra's either symptom and response or problem and solution, just because I felt like there was that, if there was anything that was emphasized in her through line, I felt like that was definitely present. Like all she's doing is like, please come to my show. I want you to come to my show. I want you to come to my show. And then that conflict of her trying to give the show and then.
So what do you want it as a problem or the symptom or what?
I think desire, I don't know.
You also have to think about how it affects the other through lines.
Right.
Well, I'm interested to see how it would, because I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
So if we made the problem desire, that's back to our speculation and projection. Remember that? I think we had that earlier.
You're right, though, because it sets their
evidence.
Yeah.
You know, this is where you have evidence over here in the overall story is the issue, and that sort of does not fit.
No, it doesn't. I don't like that as much. Never mind. I take it back. Thank you.
So that's the advantage of having. You can try it, look at it, see if it fits, and if it doesn't, then you try something else. That is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
And oh, interesting. So we have the catalyst in the overall story is truth. So that's what causes the story to move forward faster or create more conflict. Well, you see an awful lot of that in and toward the end of the story. I'm trying to think of what some of the truths are.
Well, again, I mean, I would say that the whole thing starts with a half truth, right? I mean, because he did cheat. She doesn't say, but I mean, there's truth in it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and that sure does move things forward.
There might be an elephant in the room.
What's that?
The protagonist, the main character, just might be Sin-Dee after all. I think we were running with Alexandria as the protagonist, but it's just a struggle.
I don't know. I don't think there's. I mean, I think Alexandra really fits the
main character.
The main character much stronger because I mean, Sin-Dee is a very strong protagonist, and whenever you're talking about the overall story, it's a lot easier to think about. Well, it's best to think about the characters by their role. So you shouldn't even be using proper names. You should be thinking of the hooker and the pimp and the cab driver and the cab driver's wife and the cab driver's mother-in-law and the recently released hooker and that would be the way you best think of it in the overall story. We tend to use the proper names because it's easier to identify them and it feels more natural. But when you do, you start to subjectify, you start to make it subjective, and that's an incorrect way of looking at it in that context. So
okay.
so we've been talking about Sin-Dee, but it's really not. It's the recently released hooker,
Mhm.
the one that's causing all this sort of chaos. And in regards to our main character, Alexandra, who is, the one who's just sort of aspiring but not very confident, and not really being there for her best friend. She definitely seems like the main character, with Sin-Dee being that very proactive, or very active influence character. Her activities are the things that are forcing Alexandra to sort of have to face her own.
Oh, I see that.
Okay.
And I mean, I will say, I do like, I like the idea of knowledge and thought as symptom and response for Alexandra, right? I mean, because in her mind, like, she knows the truth about what happened with her and Chester and all of that, and so on and so forth. And her response is sort of to try to control what Sin-Dee's thinking about it.
And about her, what she's trying to, what do you try to control what she thinks about her?
That too, yeah.
About Alexandra, or what she's thinking, yeah. And even with her own, she's like, I know that no one's going to show up to my my event. I know that I'm not talented, that I even have to pay this stuff, but I'm going to make everybody think this is a very popular event, that they, that everybody else is going to be there, and they should show up.
Mhm.
That would be the kind of.
Is Alexandria the guardian?
What would she be? I'm not sure. I don't know if she's it.
I know that catalyst of truth. It's interesting how, especially with the non-traditional stuff they're involved in, that truth is always a big smackaroo. It pushes the next scene interactions between the characters. So it was just kind of an interesting combination.
I don't know that there are any real. I mean, we have a pretty strong archetypal protagonist, but I don't think most of the other characters, except for maybe the mom being a contagonist.
I mean, the guardian, you don't think, I mean, I was thinking in the bathroom, and she's chastising the other girl for how she's taking care of, or the person, how taking care of the blonde that's on dope and
yeah, she might be. Yeah, she may be conscious. Although
conscience. Okay, yeah.
But I'm not sure. She's not really, doesn't seem to be helped.
Right, but the conscience part of the guardian. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
She does. I would agree. The conscience part, it seems that way to me, but it's almost like a mixture between that and like the skeptic or something, right? Because it feels like she's really barking. She's really saying, like, this is not going to work. This is a bad idea. We shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
We feel like we get a lot of that from her.
Right. That's why I said I think there's more complex characters. I don't think they're they're not really simple, which I think is good, when, especially since they're really not emphasizing the plot much. They really want to focus on characters, so you don't want to have archetypes. You want characters that are far more interesting and unexpected, because you're spending a lot more time with them, as characters, as opposed to the activities that they're involved in. Okay, well, I think this looks like a nice story form for something that I know that I was having a time struggling. I mean,
you couldn't figure one out before we got here?
Oh no, I don't do that anymore because then I end up leading it to a destination, and I really don't want that to happen. I do think about it in the broadest sense, but no, I don't really try to. I try not to think of a story form ahead of time. I know Jim goes through not necessarily this one, but he's pretty prodigious in coming up with the story form, and he's always my fallback position if I'm like floundering. But
I had no idea on this one, and I
Yeah.
was like, memories. It's not memories or conceptualizing. But then, once I thought, oh, instinct, and then over there, and then the inertia thing, I was like, oh shoot, this is actually it. And it just went. boop, boop, boop.
yeah, but I mean, I think it's really nice to have you guys come in and do this because it's voices that we don't normally hear and really perfect timing. I tell you, because this one was for you guys. It really seemed to fit pretty easily. And I was having
His other film is
Pardon?
holistic too. The Florida Project.
yeah.
The director's other film. I don't know if you guys talked about that beforehand, but
No, I was not a fan. I thought it was interesting, but I thought it was interminable.
And did you talk? Did you
thought
talk in the
that-
beginning about how this whole film was shot on iPhone?
No.
I don't think so.
We
Oh,
didn't talk
that
about it.
explains a lot.
Yeah, 3 iPhones they use.
3 iPhones. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of artifacting in it too.
That's cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean they paid for locations and things, but they saved a lot on lighting and cameras.
And everything else. Yeah.
Can I say though, it's actually really funny that you said that earlier because I was like, wow, the overall story, there's a lot of that in this. Like my feeling was like, oh no, there's a lot of focus on that. So it was interesting. I guess by contrast though, maybe it's just
Well, because the way that they broke out sort of like the main character moments pretty, I mean, it's like just her alone,
yeah.
A lot. And it's hard when they're part of the overall story to know exactly when it's, what job it's doing. But I think that, it worked well. And I thought that the guerrilla film style was actually very appropriate for the subject matter. I thought it worked quite well for that, but I did see a lot of artifacting in it. I was like, that's odd. I shouldn't be seeing that kind of stuff in modern movies.
Wait, artifact, what does that mean?
Where you see especially if you have a background that's got a slightly graduated light to dark or something, and it starts blocking up a little bit. That's called artifacts because it's really, in real life it's smooth, but the camera can't catch enough graduated color to do it, so it makes these little blocks. It was not very much, but it was just like especially like in the edges of things, it was just odd.
I did not even notice.
No, well, and again, because of the guerrilla style, it's what helps make digital look gritty. That's kind of the way I would explain it, because it makes it look that sort of gritty look. Because they can't really get grit on digital since it's not physical. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you guys.
Are we really trying to do the next meeting on the very artificial but seemingly important Valentine's Day?
Oh, is it on VD? Oh,
yeah.
Seemingly artificial.
Not seemingly. Clearly, but seemingly important to some.
Oh, I see.
Traditional.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's up to everybody here. Do you want to do it on Valentine's Day or not? I mean,
I just bring up now. I probably won't be able to participate.
Well,
We could do it on Monday.
Well, what I'll do is I'll propose a different date then. So no, we generally don't move it, but we almost moved tonight. So yeah, I'm much more amenable to, you know, to moving it. So that's not a problem. I will figure out what we'll do and let everybody know. But it'll be likely be. I'll see about is it Monday okay for you guys? Generally speaking, we moved it to the 13th.
Yes.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's plan on that, and I'll just see if there's any Oh, this is February. Yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem. All right, then I'll change the calendar. All right, guys. Thank you, and have it. Wait, what is next? What are we doing next month?
The Adjustment Bureau.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, it's February 14th.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm guessing that'll be linear. But...
I think it'll be linear. It'll be pretty straightforward, would be my guess, but you never know. Because I liked it. All right. Take care, guys.
All right.
Night. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Night.